This episode was created with the support of Free FM, Hamilton, New Zealand's community access media organisation. Visit us at freefm.org.nz.
Hello and welcome to another episode of ReThinking Mental Wellbeing. This is our community podcast where we can talk about everything related to depression and anxiety. So my name is Andre and I want to thank you for being with me over the next half an hour as we share the space of lived experience where we can talk about how to live the best version of our authentic life. So, if you're ready, then I'm ready. Welcome to the podcast. Hey, welcome back to Rethinking Mental Wellbeing. If this is your first time here, then I welcome you to the space. If you have been here before, then I welcome you back to the space. I was asked this question a while back that I thought would be a good topic for today's episode. And this was the question: can you please talk about self-care in one of your episodes and why self-care is so hard to do? And this is the topic for today's episode. Just imagine for a moment that everything has a cost, but not just everything that was already purchased, but everything, including our thoughts, our feelings, our environment, our actions, other people, and our time. And the cost to use these things is the price that you pay for the energy that these things run on. This system relies on balance and harmony. We pay for the energy going out, but we also have to recruit a way to get that energy back so we can keep ourselves in this state of harmony. But what if we can't afford the cost? What if I can't afford the energy to exchange? Now we are in a state of deficit. But we still have to think and feel and imagine and all those things that we listed off before as a human being. But now we don't have the ability to pay for the energy that we are still consuming because we don't have a system that allows us to get that energy back. And so we find ourselves in a deficit without knowing how to pay that back. And because we are in a deficit of all our thoughts and feelings and environment and people and worries and stresses and all the other things that we've purchased, it now becomes more expensive to run. And the more in debt that we find ourselves, the more expensive they are to run because their energy consumption just went up. And our deficit increases because the system of balance is now disrupted. And this system doesn't like being disrupted and out of balance. And so it will naturally try and find its balance. And it does this by trying to provide us opportunities to allow ourselves to get back this energy. The system never wants you to be in deficit. This system does not want you running from debt to debt that you're unable to pay back. It prefers you to be in balance. And just like everything in the universe, there needs to be this exchange between energy out versus energy back in. So what I've just described isn't science fiction or made up. It's not just a nice way of thinking. This is our biology. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about this topic of self-care. And this exchange between energy expended or energy used and consumed needs to be repaid back to us. This is not optional. It's not based on self-worth. It is the law of nature, the law of our biology, and a law that we have no choice but to follow. But where do we get to renew lost energy? We get it back through renewable, clean energy sources. These days, the replenishing of lost energy, bringing yourself back to a place of balance and harmony, goes under a different name that has kind of lost some of its meaning in translation. That name is what we call self-care. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to manage your energy under the more common name of self-care. We often resign ourselves to live in this state of deficit energy, especially if we have thinking like we've lived like this for so long, and therefore we're always going to continue to live like this. So ask yourself this question: what does your life look like now? Are you paying the energy debt of a busy, overwhelming, energy-consuming environment, or feelings and emotions, or actions, or other people, or time? Do you wake up in the morning, kind of grit your teeth and try and just push yourself to get through the day on whatever little energy that you have? Do you feel you have an obligation to put everybody else first before you on the level of importance? Do you feel both you and your environment is under so much stress that it becomes overwhelming and energy draining because they're costing you way more than you can afford to give? Because maybe this focus has a belief that other people are more deserving of care, kindness, compassion before me, or even worse, without me at all in the equation. And maybe you're listening to this and you are a person that just tries to hold on and push through their day with all of the stresses, with all of the scripts that tells yourself the stories and how you narrate those stories to yourself about where you fit into the world and where your place is in the world. That you've been trying the best you can with what you've got, but not giving yourself that time to refuel for weeks, if not years. And then suddenly you just find you have no more energy left, and then you crash. But the fact that you are listening to this tells me that you have survived that crash. Because my interpretation of a crash is our falling apart is the universe's way of making space to reconnect to the parts of you that need to rest for self-care, for the purpose of recalibrating and rebalancing our energies. But we are stubborn mammals, and the pull to stay within the feel of the familiar stories and the familiar way of life for the familiar reasons is very inviting, even enticing. Someone said to me a few years ago, I just don't have time to self-care. I have to continue to be the funny one, the helpful one, or the popular one, or the nice one, because that is my identity. We have an urgent call to try and get our needs met. This is universal, and we're all trying to head in the same direction, but using different paths to get to the same place. You may not know of the relationship dynamic of the energy that you spend and how to replenish and rebalance it again, but the universe does. See if this sounds familiar. I just don't have time. I have more important things to do. You know, I'm not into that self-help, self-care rubbish. I'll get to it tomorrow. It's on my to-do list. And so we convince ourselves that we have more convincing, urgent, or important things to do. And so we continue being off balance or living off balance, which is too much energy out and not enough energy in. And we continue to add self-care to our day when we have time, or when we can fit it into an already busy day, or if we can be bothered, or maybe if our I'm worth it meter spikes a little bit and we give ourselves permission to self-care, or when the universe demands it. This kind of reminds me of the leaky boat analogy. So you have a boat, there's water leaking into the boat and weighing it down. This is the representation of things in life that long-term will drain our energy. But if we spend all our time trying to bail water out of the boat with a bucket to avoid sinking, then we're using way more energy than we are getting, and it's very unproductive. It may work, but only for a short time, because the more tired you get, the less effective you are. And after some time, your capacity to bail water out changes, and it no longer feels like you're using a bucket-sized capacity, but instead maybe using a thimble-sized capacity with all the holes in it, because that's all the energy that we can spare and muster after trying so long to do your best by bailing the water out. The amount of water or energy coming in is still the same, but the ability to stay in rescue mode can't be sustained over a longer period of time. And then we become less effective and more exhausted. Now we start to understand that if we are always in bailing water mode, and then some podcaster tells you to self-care, it's really hard to take that advice when you've been trying the best you can to rescue yourself from all the things that leak into your day, and you're doing the best you can to deal with the outcomes. Instead, what we need to do is to plug the leaks, to stop or at least reduce the water coming into the boat. By reducing or stopping the things in life that drain your energy, by reducing and stopping the sources of energy, we can do things like putting boundaries in place and finding the answer to the questions like what stresses are actually mine? Which ones can I put down right now? What are my options? What do I need to do to prioritize self-care before the universe will prioritize it for you? An example of this would be if you are overwhelmed and you have a lot of external stresses, instead of trying to juggle them all and use all the leftover energy that you have, give yourself space and time to go somewhere quiet and calm for the purpose of getting your energy back. But if we don't find time to refuel, eventually we will burn out because we can't sustain a continual energy outflow without replenishing the energy that we've lost. This is physically, mentally, and emotionally impossible. But finding the energy to refuel when you've just crashed is really hard to do. Somehow you have to find the energy to claw your way back, to finally self-care, to look after yourself. But what happens is when people crash and they try and claw their way back, they just try to get back to the place that they were before. Without understanding, this energy needs to be rebalanced. Not once or twice, not when you feel like it, but as a lifestyle. And so they go back to the same stresses, the same lifestyle, the same environment, without recalibrating their energy balance for long term. And then eventually they crash again, and then the cycle repeats. You become tired because you need to rest and recover, but you become exhausted because you don't listen to what you need to do. I hope that makes sense. It is much easier to maintain than it is to repair. To add energy activities and energy environments and energy connections into your day as a lifestyle. It's about learning to reframe the equation. So typically there's 4 categories of self-care. The physical, our mental, our emotional, and our spiritual. And there's a key word that you may have picked up before that I used, and that word was lifestyle, or rebalancing your energy, or self-care if you prefer to call it that. These should never be optional. Rebalancing your energy or your self-care needs to be as important and as critical as breathing. You need to breathe to keep yourself alive, and you need to self-care to keep yourself in balance. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is about us and our energy, and our rebalancing and replenishing of those energies. It's about our pace in life, which is the relationship we have between effort and rest, and our priority with all of those things. Maybe you've been told in younger years, and therefore learnt through life, that thinking about yourself is somehow wrong, and so we feel guilt and shame when we do that. I've used this analogy before, but just imagine that you've spent 10 days walking through the Sahara Desert with no water. You're really dehydrated, and the one thing that your body is now craving for is water. Let's say someone offers you this life-giving fresh water. You're not going to say to that person, "There are more important people to give this to. I'm not worth as much as other people, so give this to someone else who actually deserves it." Your biology doesn't understand that type of talk. It has to be hydrated. Self-talk will not stop that. And it's the same thing with giving ourselves time and permission to self-care. If we see it as being selfish, somehow wrong that we're thinking about ourselves, our biology doesn't understand that kind of self-talk. It still needs to balance our energy needs, to replenish the energy that has been lost through our stresses and our environments and the situations and the conditions that we're facing. We need to create the space and room in our life and make space and room for self-care. Because if you don't make that space and room to self-care, if we don't make that time to refuel and replenish our energy, the universe will make that time and force self-care onto you, where then your only option is to self-care. Contrary to belief, self-care are not the things that you do that makes yourself feel good. Feeling good is not the criteria for self-care, because there are a lot of things in the world that we can do that can make us feel good, but not necessarily refueling or replenishing. So we need to understand that the criteria and measurement of self-care needs to change from feeling good as the gold standard of proof that self-care worked based purely on a feel-good outcome, but to look at it as a framework of routines that are well established and applied consistently to help recalibrate and rebalance our energy deficit to become more in harmony with ourselves as a healthy, long-lasting lifestyle. To look at self-care as a framework that allows you to construct and hook your self-care activities onto. There's a really nice acronym that will help you understand what needs to go into self-care, and the acronym is called NEST. So we're going to outline a few helpful ways to remember what self-care or energy care is made up of. But I want to point out that the most important thing you can do right now, if self-care is something you haven't been doing, before you learn how to master these things, is to master the art of just showing up. This is a concept that James Clear talks about in his book, Atomic Habits. Highly recommend that book. Please get that if you can. But the purpose of these is to start to build into the practice of just showing up and establishing a routine of creating space and room to do these things in the first place. This is about progress before perfection. In fact, it's not even about perfection. This is not even about mastering the art of how to do this within a week, but about practicing to create space and room to show up to do them. So the N in NEST stands for nutrition. So it's eating well, eating better, or starting to or continuing to eat healthier. You know the old saying that says we are what we eat? Actually, we are what we process. But not just with food, but what we intake from what we see and what we hear from our environment. Nutrition is such a vital part of our mental well-being, and what we eat literally affects and changes everything within your body. The whole purpose of eating is to extract the healthy nutrients that food provides so your body can utilize the energy from the nutrients. Food affects how we feel and how we think. So eating high-quality foods that contain vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and other nutritional benefits is so important for our well-being. You may have heard of a neurotransmitter by the name of serotonin. This is a neurotransmitter that helps us with things like regulating sleep, appetite. It helps mediate our moods and even helps inhibit pain. It has nicknames like the feel-good hormone or the happiness hormone. It is one of our 4 feel-good hormones we have. A lack of serotonin contributes to us feeling low, feeling depressed, anxious, or irritable. 80 to 90% of serotonin is produced within your gastro tract. So your digestive system with the right food doesn't just help you digest food, it also helps you literally create some of your emotions that you feel. This is an oversimplification of serotonin, but the key point to take away is that our diet is one of the ways that we can increase our health and well-being. There have even been studies that shows diet like the Mediterranean diet reducing the risk of depression by 25 to 35%, as opposed to those that are on a regular traditional diet. That's according to the American Health Association. The most common unhealthy foods includes highly processed items like fast food and snack food. And that's because highly processed food tends to be low in nutrients like vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, and high in empty calories. So the takeaway message is start to eat a little more healthier. Make small and consistent changes to your diet. Drink plenty of water. So drinking lots of water improves your physical health in all sorts of ways. It keeps your circulation flowing. It aids in digestion and weight loss. It eases joint movement, helps your body absorb the nutrients in your food, just to name a few benefits. Just on a side note though, if you do have allergies or any specific food requirements, then of course you need to work around this. So go to your doctor or a nutritionist about ways to incorporate healthy food around your specific needs. The E in the word nest is exercise and movement. As human beings, we are designed to move. We're not designed to be sedentary. We're not designed to live indoors for any length of time. This is the whole reason why we have limbs and joints and muscles and tendons. We have to move. We have to exercise. What is the difference between movement and exercise? Movements are things like walking, yoga, stretching, tai chi. Exercise is movement that has an increase in elevated heart rate. Both of these things are critical, and as I said before, you're not learning to master the art of these straight away, but you are learning to show up to do them. So even if you can only exercise 3 minutes, then you exercise for 3 minutes, but you make sure that you can do it continuously to establish that habit of routine. Movements that involve organic and functional movements work really well. So things that you naturally do, like cleaning the house, involves a lot of movement. Walking, whether it's in nature or around town, gets you moving. If you have a lack of mobility, of course, you're going to work around that. But there are things you can do, like chair yoga exercises. And these are good options to get you to move within your capacity. So, of course, this all depends on your mobility limits and any conditions that you have that restrict mobility. So talk to your doctor about ways to move and exercise that fits around your specific needs. The S in nests stands for sleep. We could do a whole episode on each of these topics on their own, and we may well do that in future episodes because they are an important part of our mental well-being. Learning to sleep better is worth investing time into. Sleep, when it's done well, includes the quality or the depth of sleep and the quantity, the length of sleep. Both of these change the game for mental well-being. There's a British neuroscientist by the name of Matt Walker. He's the world-renowned sleep expert. He's conducted research on the impact of sleep on health and well-being. He is the founder and director of the Center of Human Sleep Science at the University of California. This is one of his quotes. There has been an amazing breakthrough. Scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer. It enhances your memory and makes you more creative. It makes you feel better. It lowers food cravings. It lowers blood sugar levels. It wards off colds and flus. It lowers your risk of heart attack and stroke, not to mention diabetes. You'll feel happier, less depressed, and less anxious. This, of course, is sleep. The T in nests stands for time for yourself. This is where you carve up your day and insert into your day times when you can focus on your interests. Things like finding a hobby, spending time doing what you love to do. Time for yourself could mean everything from breathing meditation in silence right through to walking in nature or just hanging out with friends. But this is your time and your investment. And then the last S in nest stands for support. And we also have to put in here connections. Having the right people around you, the right supports around you, the right atmosphere around you. Connections gets a very important need met, our need to feel that we belong. Feeling connected is not just something you do, it's how you feel. If I could tell you what connection looks like, it would be separation is the frequency of being divided by our differences. Connection is the frequency of being united by our humanity. And that frequency is knowing that every human is heading in the same direction as you to try and get their needs met, to try and live in a way that is authentically them, to try and live in a way that their authentic nature can be expressed into the world and to reduce their suffering. And again, I'm going to mention that don't feel you have to do all of these things straight away. If you're already overwhelmed, that's going to be even more overwhelming to you, and then that defeats the purpose. So start with the easy ones. It may be the ones you're already doing. But your focus now becomes purposeful. If you're already exercising and moving, continue to do that. But now you can put that in the self-care category and the refueling category. If you're already having time for yourself, then put that into the self-care and refueling category. If you're already eating well, then keep doing that. So the intention is for you to build your own self-care kit set. Going back to this author, James Clear, the author of the book Atomic Habits, that again highly recommend to you, talks about our actions as casting a vote for the person we are becoming. And I really like this. So look at this practice that you're doing as a voting system, which means every time you practice self-care, then that is a vote for the person that you're choosing to be, the person that you're reinforcing, the person that you are. The more votes you have, in other words, the more times that you do it, the more habitual it's going to become. Your biology loves consistency. It will take whatever you've practiced over and over again and will interpret that as being the important thing that you want to focus on. But the choice of what we get to practice, though, is over to us. So that's all I've got for this episode. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you've got something useful from this discussion. And if you have any questions you would like us to discuss on future episodes, then please email me at rethinkingmentalwellbeing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. So until then, go well, go in peace, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
This Free FM podcast was brought to you with support from New Zealand On Air.